everyone, it's Stéphane Compin from 𝙙𝙤𝙨 podcast, and we are live today with this episode 12, and I'm joined by Jill Saville. She's an executive coach and vice chair of the British Chamber of Commerce in Luxembourg. Dear Jill, thanks to be my guest today, and I'm really happy that you joined the podcast. To start with, can you tell us a bit about yourself, where you're coming from, and about your business?
Morning, Stefan. Thanks for inviting me. I come from the UK. You can hear I come from there. And may I say that with the current situation, it was a really good move to come over here in 2009, I think it was. So yes, as you say, I'm a coach, but I was in the public sector in the UK for many years. Ending up in the Legal Aid Board, as it was, Legal Services Commission. But while I was there, I trained as a coach, as an internal coach. So when I arrived over here, and you asked me, how did I come to be over here? I came over here to live with a man.
Okay.
Who I'm still with, so that worked out okay.
That's okay.
And I thought, okay, so what is it that I can do? And I was a coach, a qualified coach, so I built up from there. But I have 3 adult children who are still in the UK, 2 grandsons, and I actually live just south of the border in France. Of course, I'm not in Luxembourg, but why Luxembourg? Because I'm a typical Brit. Languages are really not my thing, and there's lots of companies that English is their main language, so it's a good market for me.
And what type of coaching are you doing?
I mainly focus on people who are interested in leading well. So it's all about communicating with people. How do you build trust with people? How do you develop them? So yes, things around leadership, communication. I'm qualified in process communication. And more recently, I'm interested in all the neuroscience and how the brain works and how we can try and keep other people out of stress when we're having conversations with them, that kind of thing. So I'm in a program called Mental Fitness, Positive Intelligence with 𝙙𝙤𝙪𝙨𝙚. So this thing, I've always got the thing that I'm studying. So that's the one I'm studying.
And how was it to start from scratch as a coach in a new country that you didn't know anything about? Of course, you said that English is quite commonly used in Luxembourg, but still, you come from the public sector. Maybe you didn't have experience on being your own boss. How did you manage that?
Well, trial and error. And as you say, I knew not a soul in Luxembourg. I didn't know many people in France. So what did I do? I thought about the types of communities, types of groups that I might join. So the Coach Federation, the International Coach Federation, was in its infancy, the chapter in Luxembourg, but I joined that. I joined Toastmasters, which was great. There's for a small country, you've got quite a few clubs in Toastmasters. And of course, I joined the British Chamber because it seemed like I was British, so I would join the British Chamber. So then I just really kept talking to people.
And was it a bit challenging to get your first customers? How did you show them that you had enough expertise, even if you did? I mean, you had a background of coaching in the public sector, but being new in Luxembourg, how did you convince them that you were the match for what they were looking for?
Well, it took a long time, and some of it was about who I believed I was. And I think when you've been employed and you have a title, and all of a sudden you no longer have that title, even coming into somewhere and saying who you are, I could no longer say, hey, I'm Jill Saville, I'm whatever. So the hardest thing I think was recreating me and being comfortable with the fact that I was just me, and then building up that credibility. I think the reason why I'm always studying something is so that for me, I'm staying relevant, I'm staying credible. And then gradually, to be honest, when I started off, I gave away coaching because I just wanted people to start and see what I did. So I would do it for free. I don't know if that's how other people started, but that's certainly how I started. And then gradually people are reassured that you know what you're doing and would recommend you to other people.
Yeah, I think there's
a bit of a time delay, isn't there?
Yeah, there's some time delay. That's maybe there's too many people using internet at the same time, but yeah, I think you are right that a way to gain credibility is to offer some of the services so that people can try and understand what you are doing. Of course, you shouldn't do anything for free, but to start with, that's a good way of of people to understand and to see that if there's a match in or if they are interested to go further.
But there's a difference between free and free. Yes, I might not have been paid, but the connections that I made and the fact that there was always something reciprocal and somebody would then help me. I mean, there's more to life than money, I think. So you are building up credit with people.
I totally agree.
And you mentioned also public sector. Yeah, that was public sector. And although when I was trained as a coach, the idea is that you're there to ask people questions, you're there to help people find their own solutions. So actually, if you don't know what they do, that's great because you don't try and give them ideas and give them your own solutions. So I knew that I was a better coach if I didn't know what people do. But you try selling that idea to people. When companies, legal companies, finance companies are looking for a coach, they're looking for somebody with that background. Mm-hmm. And they're doing that because actually they get a bit confused between mentoring and coaching. So one of the things that I was doing while I was giving things away for free was coaching people in all different sectors so that I could say I've coached, because it added to my CV. So I'd coached people in research at the university, I'd coached lawyers, I'd coached finance. So all of the different sectors I suddenly had experience in. So that helped too.
And I think that going into different sectors also enable you to learn from the people you've coached, get information that you can use, on another coaching session with another person in a different sector. And I think, like in a lot of business, you need to keep learning to increase your skills and increase your ability to help people in your coaching sessions.
Yes, that's right. I don't want to become an expert in their sector because they're the expert. I don't actually need to know. But you're right. I need to know something so that when they're talking about acronyms and they're comfortable in that I can fit in, I suppose. Yes, yes. The other thing that I did while we're on the building up thing was I started to mentor for organizations, for charities. So there was one, Aspire, which was in London, and now it's global. And the idea was that they would match somebody in the public or charitable sector with a coach or a mentor, and we would do it for free. Excuse me. But I started to coach through the internet, of course. This was years ago. And so then I could say, I've coached somebody in Ghana, I've coached somebody in Rwanda who are helping teenage girls. I've coached somebody in Canada and Hawaii. So that, of course, all helps me to create this mental idea of who am I, and I do this. And of course, then the next step is to be paid for doing this.
But it helps you to build some credibility as well, being able to do that. And
yes, absolutely.
But how I mean, you arrived in Luxembourg, you try to sell yourself, you join different groups, association and networks to promote yourself in a way. Of course, it takes time. It doesn't come from one day to the other. How did you manage that? Did it, after 6 months, after 7 months, maybe it wasn't where you wanted it to be? Did you had any time where you said, "Oh, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing, or I'm on the wrong path"?
The first thing you said was try to sell myself, and I think I wasn't particularly good at that. Going out and saying, "Hey, look at me, I've got this thing." And I was very fortunate to join the John Maxwell team. John Maxwell being somebody who wrote books on leadership. Not many people in Europe know him, but there was a person that talked to him and said, "Hey, we'll create a team around you, and we'll teach people to find their market. We'll teach people to." So their model was that we would find people who, we would create a group, we would create a safe space, a mastermind group, and we would talk about different laws of leadership. And from there, then you would get clients, and that model worked really well. So if anybody's thinking of starting up, I think my main message would be to find somebody who's done it, to find somebody who you feel aligned to, an organization or whatever. I mean, there's so many people out there who are going to teach you how to sell, but find something that you're comfortable with, because their idea was that you are helping somebody with something. And I can do that. If there's anybody that wants me to help them with something, then I'm there. Can I sell me? No, I can't. So I think there's a difference. And going back to networking, I think can be quite harsh, particularly if you're not in a good mood. And so you go in and you're trying to meet people. Once somebody explained to me that actually it's not you who needs to be interesting. You need to be interested in the other person and try to think, okay, if I meet somebody who wants your services, what is it that you do and how can I pass your name on? Now that makes a connection far more than if I stand and say who I am. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I went through the same path when I mean, I did some networking. I've been part of the British Chamber for many years. But when I set up my company and I said, okay, I need to, marketing myself and the company, I went to a lot of networking events, and the mindset is that you want to learn from the people and not try to sell. And I've seen people, that didn't understand that they didn't get any outcome from networking because they were hard selling, which you shouldn't do in a networking event. And the people you are talking to might not be someone who will buy your services, but it might be the person that will refer you, to someone they met who is looking for coaching or relocation in my case. And it's really a different state of mind. And when you understand that, it makes the whole exercise much easier.
Absolutely, because I've spoken to you a few times, but now that I know that you're in relocation, you're probably the only person I know that's in relocation. So if anybody that I talk to says, do you know anybody? I absolutely do. We've had a conversation. So yeah, it's all about building relationships and seeing who you connect with.
And yeah, coming back to a part of my question was, did you have any, at any point, did you have a feeling that you didn't take the right path in starting as a coach in Luxembourg in the first months?
Definitely. It was difficult at first, and when you're working alone, I had always worked in teams. I had always worked with people. I'm the kind that give me open plan. I love it. People around me. So to then have to keep up my own morale at home and steel myself and go out into the world and try and find my place in it. Yes, absolutely. That was hard. And the only way I got over that really was to find a new inner circle, if you like, an inner circle of people and supporters, because my previous inner circle in London no longer helped me here. Yeah. So yes, absolutely. There were times when I thought, because I never intended to be an entrepreneur. I always say I lived my mother's life until I was 30. I did all the usual expected things. And I was in the civil service mainly because she was. I stayed in it my entire life, although I moved about in it. But I was safe. I was public sector. I could have stayed there. So to suddenly be self-employed, it was not written. It was not in my plan. So yeah, it was very hard at first. Now I think, my goodness, how did you ever go to the same place every day, Jill? That must have been so boring.
It's the same with me, and I think it's a common thing with a lot of people. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. I always said that that's not for me when people were asking. Yeah, it's totally different. Of course, it can be stressful, it can be exciting, but like you said, it can be very lonely when you start. And I was lucky to start the business with my wife, which it helps you. We help each other when one was down, the other was helping the other to stay positive. But what I discovered was. We had a small office in Luxembourg and alone, nobody. And I think that was a mistake. I mean, maybe not a mistake, it was a pass. But I was working with a team before, and it was difficult not to have people to talk to around you. And it's why I think for the people that are listening, I would suggest, if you can, to go in a co-working space. We've moved now 2 years ago in a co-working space, and it's great because the people around you are kind of colleagues, even if they are not working in the same company. And there is an energy in a co-working space where you can, you're not having lunch alone. You can have a coffee break and exchange with people that are in other businesses. And it's very interesting. And well, again, I suggest for people to, and we should have done that right away, is to start in a co-working space, to keep the spirit up, to have people that, can say, oh, I went through that, don't worry, it's normal, it's difficult, but when you're alone, you're not sure that you are doing the right thing.
No, I agree. And places like House 17 at Silver Square, they were ideal to meet people.
Yeah.
And yes, now of course we're confined, and so I don't go anywhere, and I'm getting quite comfortable with not going anywhere. That's the problem. When somebody suggests, at the end of the confinement, shall we meet? And I think, oh, really? I filled up my car 3 times in 2020. So that's how little I've traveled. But yeah, the co-working spaces, I think, were a really good idea. And you just reminded me there, when I first went, I prefer to collaborate. I never wanted to appear to be in competition. And even though I suppose technically we are, actually I find collaborating with other people, with other coaches, with other trainers, to be a lot more rewarding, because you've got different ideas. You can certainly bring different things to a client. It's more interesting than just listening to one person. Of course, it's not going to make you a millionaire doing it that way, but I prefer collaboration.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, we the way we set up our business, of course, we are here to earn some money to be able to pay our bills. But we are really working in a kind of collaboration, partnership. We use the word all the time: partnership with our customers, with corporate accounts, with suppliers, with consultants, because it's the best way to share ideas and to have to improve the business as well.
Yes. We had a really interesting guest, the British Chamber. I don't know if you saw him, Simon Anholt.
I didn't manage to join.
He'd written a book, but one of his main things was the 3 stages of humanity. The first one was survival, the second one was competition, and the third one was collaboration. And he thought, as humans, that's where we should be moving to.
So I managed to reach the 3rd stage, which
is we are there.
So you've been since 2009, you said, in Luxembourg, and working in Luxembourg. What was the biggest challenge you had in your career, maybe in Luxembourg or before, and how you overcame it?
I think I've touched on it already. The biggest challenge was to reinvent me. That was really the hardest thing, because they always say that if you believe you can do something, then you're halfway there. And it was just building up that confidence that I was worth somebody paying me money. So I think that's why I'm interested as a coach in helping people to see their potential, helping them, because I can see potential in them, but there's no point if I see it. We have to believe we can do it.
And I totally agree. When I lost my job, and before creating the company, I worked with a transition coach, and I think it's what helped me. And sometimes you cannot do it alone, because if you are not able to believe that you are able to recreate yourself in something different, it's very difficult to move forward. You might end up doing the same thing. You might end up, working with the same toxic people. And again, I remember at the end of the last session, the lady knew perfectly well that I was going to set up my business. She just waited for me to tell her that I was going to set up my business, because during the whole past, the whole work we did, she knew we were going to end up at that creating our company. So But that's the difficult part. That's the very difficult part to be able to understand that and be able to work on it.
And the transition coach, you know, that is such a joy to be with somebody just for that short period of time in their journey, because they are really creating a new vision for themselves and of themselves. And what I try to do is, many people, when they're out of work, they just need that security, and so they'll find anything, you know, 100 applications a day, you know, and I try to stop them and say, let's actually decide, what is it that you want? Even if there's not that job there, if you could have any job, what would it look like? What would the environment be like? What kind of people would you be working with? What are their values? What are they, so that they can get this, because you can't go and search for something if you don't know what it looks like. And as you say, you could end up back in what you were in before, and you've not moved on. So that is a real pleasure to, and it's always a surprise, because people come up with something that I certainly wouldn't have thought of. For them, you know.
I agree, and for me it was a fantastic experience. But you know, my wife and some people told me before that I should, you know, use a transition coach while I was working my previous company, but I wasn't ready. And it's only when you are ready, and sometimes it's that, you know, when you've been pushed, that you make the step to work on yourself, and I think it's very important. Maybe what is something you wished you had known when you started as a coach in Luxembourg? Maybe things that you would have done differently now that you have experience.
One thing that I wish I'd known throughout my life really is that it's possible to change. It's possible to change it at any age, at any time. You can go off and do something different. And now that I have that belief, that reinvention, you know, I know that I can do it again. And but it is that. I really wish I'd known that. And dare I say that when I came to live here, I realized that we're a little bit more open-minded in the UK about people changing career. Mm-hmm. Because here, when I'm talking to people, if they've been trained as something, it's as if they have to keep that for their entire life, you know. Yeah, life's long, and it's getting longer. Who says that you've got to stay in the same thing forever?
Especially that you know, in the past people would start a career in the same company, you know, and stay in the same company until they retire. Now people are changing very often, and it's why you need to learn new skills. You need to train yourself all the time, because you might do something totally different from the first job you did, and I think it's great.
Yes, so do I. I can remember talking to somebody at a networking event, and he just retired, and he'd been in a bank for all his career. And I said, and what are you going to do now? I'm going to cook. I'm going to be a chef. I've always wanted to do it. And I thought, why haven't you done it before? But of course, that's the beauty of having one life and a pension and security, and then we can go off and do something else.
So I've seen that you've started your first podcast. Can you talk a bit about that, and what kind of you know, what type of people are you interviewing? What's the topic?
The topic is really self-leadership. And because I was part of the John Maxwell team, and I was doing the groups and we were talking about 21 laws of leadership, and I did quite a few groups. And of course, in Luxembourg, people start to know you sooner than if you're in other countries. It's small. And somebody once said to a friend of mine, she was talking about me, and this woman said, "Oh, you mean the leadership woman?" And that stuck in my mind. Because, of course, I'm not saying I'm a great leader. I'm saying I'm passionate about it. And leadership is the heart of everything. Being able to influence people, being able to make that connection so that you can therefore positively influence people. So because I've been studying for years, really, all the time that I've been here, from one thing to another, and with the groups I try to pass on the latest thing that I'm learning, and I'm an avid reader. My idea was that short, bite-sized little things, little tips, things that I'd learned along the way might help other people, and with the whole idea to shorten their journey, because as you said, you got a coach, you would have got there yourself, but we can speed things up. So that's the idea. Also, in this last year, I've had quite a change, and it was brought about by COVID. I was doing groups, I was doing face-to-face groups because that's what I like. Of course, we had to move online. We thought it was temporary. And then people started to say, can so-and-so join? Can I bring so-and-so from different countries? Can I bring my daughter? And I thought, well, I've got one or two students that so then I sort of had two generations, if you like, but quite a wide range. So then I separated them out, and I had now a small group of next generation that I think of, and I called them the aspiring leaders, and they just give me so much positivity and hope for the future. So I've got them, and this podcast really has been brought about from the question of, well, how can I reach more people? How can I just do, because you never know who's going to listen or where they're going to listen from. And already people have, said about bloody time. In fact, that was one comment I got from somebody. So yeah, I'm enjoying it so far.
That's great. And was it challenging to do that? Because I remember reading a post on Facebook said that you were pushing it away until you really started it. How did it go, the first one?
In fact, it was easy. The kind of thing that you think, why has it taken me so long? So the very first one was just start. The very first thing I talked about yesterday was how it had taken me, so it had been an idea for such a long time, and what finally got me over the starting line, if you like. And I thought that might help other people, because we've all got things that we think we ought to start.
Yeah.
So
we are just postponing very often for the wrong reason. And again, often it goes back to what we said before, the fear of being judged. And now that I've integrated that, well, that's fine, people might not like what I'm doing, but as long as other people like what I'm doing, that's fine. I cannot please everybody. And this new state of mind helped me a lot to try new things.
I agree. And I mentioned positive intelligence, and positive intelligence is talking about the two sides to us, really. One side is the saboteurs, the ones that are telling you can't do it, who do you think you are, and look at them. So we judge ourselves, we judge other people, So the judge is the biggest saboteur that we have, and to try and turn that around so that we're working in positive part of our mind, using empathy and innovation and that kind of thing. These are the kind of, I'm hoping that that's going to be of interest to people, this whole mental fitness idea and what they can do so that they stay more in this positive part of the brain rather than listen to that constant
and
judge.
It's very important, and I'm sure it will appeal to a lot of people. I'm one of them.
Good.
Maybe to finish on a more personal side of yourself, what is a passion of yours that you rarely share with people at work? You told me that you love reading. Do you have other things that you that you do to free your mind or to get out of business?
Well, as long as you don't tell anybody, Stefan, I have this. I really love the Korean series on Netflix. And not only on Netflix, also on Viki. I pay for that. And I've been trying to decide what is it that draws me in. And I think it's the emotion. I think they display emotion. They're not afraid to do that. And everything is so much slower. And yeah, I just like that world. And I've learned so much about their culture. So yes, that's one.
Very unusual.
That's one thing, but don't tell anybody.
No, but I need to have a look. It's interesting. I didn't know that you had Korean series on Netflix, so I will have to look at that. Another thing, as you are getting a bit older, what becomes more important in your life, and what became less important in terms of values, priorities?
People become more and more important. I think when you're at work, and I work with people who work 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, and sometimes I want to say to them that thing that you're working on, not only will it not really be important in 6 months' time or a year's time, when you look back on your life, nobody will remember that you did it. But what people will remember is the conversation that you had with them, the friendship that you had. So that becomes more important. And I also, and because of that, and because some people are a drain, and some people lift you, don't they? And my life's too short to be around people who drain me. So I'm quite choosy about who I spend my time with. So yes, people become more important, I think.
And I think that I've reached that point in a certain way as well. You need to surround yourself with like-minded people that won't drain you down, that brings value to your life, and like you said, what you are doing at work today doesn't have any sense really in terms of the value in the future. It's more about the people and the discussion you have with the people. I totally agree. Lastly, what are maybe 2 or 3 tips or advices for our listeners who would want to start as a coach, or who would want to launch their own business? Maybe people that have worked in a certain business all their life and have experience, and they want to to change and share this experience by being a coach.
I think first of all, understand the difference between being a coach and being a mentor.
Yeah.
Because it's not well understood. And a coach, we just ask questions and try that person to find their own solutions. Mentoring is different. Mentoring is equally valuable, but mentoring is finding somebody who is that bit further along than you, who can help you and do this. So be clear what it is you want to do. And many of us do a mix of it.
Mm-hmm.
Build up your credibility. Build up credibility by being properly trained. It's not something that you just stumble into and you'll do a good job. Mentoring, yes, to a certain extent, you can pass on your knowledge. Coaching, I would say not. Be trained and be associated with the groups. So you've got EMCC in Europe, you've got the ICF, which is global, just to mention two. So build up your credibility, build up experience. One of my mentors used to say, speakers speak, writers write, and coaches coach. If you're a coach, then get out there and get that experience and build up your hours so that you've got the qualifications, the credibility, and the experience. And the last thing I would say about coaching is don't do it unless you're interested in people.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because you need to be curious. You need to really listen to somebody. And if you're not interested in people, then move on and do something else.
Yeah, what is really interesting about what you said is about the fact that you need to train yourself to be a coach. I think, I've seen so many times that some people starting as coaches, and just because they had some experience or because they thought that would be great, but they didn't train themselves to be coaches, to learn how to share and ask questions to the people they are going to coach. And it's a job in itself to be a coach. It's just that not something that you wake up one morning saying, "Oh, I'm going to be a coach." So I think it's important what you said. It's something that people who want to do that, they have to do it for the right reason.
That's right, because many of us, even coaches, we are talking to somebody, they have an issue, and we think, "Oh, I can solve that. I've had that. You just need to do this." Well, okay, that's mentoring. It may or may not be the right solution for them, but actually what's even more useful is them finding their own solution, because it's probably even better than what you did.
Exactly. Yeah. If our listeners want to connect with you, what is the best way to do that? And we'll put the info in the podcast note, maybe on LinkedIn or admin, which is what is the easiest way?
By email. It's Jill@JillSaville.com.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for joining the podcast, Jill. I really enjoyed our discussions, and I hope to see you soon.
And you, Stefan. Maybe we can see each other at a British Chamber event in person.
When we are allowed to meet in person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.